How did you and your husband meet?
At a rave. I had transitioned from teaching into real estate. Sometimes I get frustrated with him just not being the detailed person that I need him to be sometimes.
So things like being an agent, doing rental arbitrage, co-hosting, these are active jobs, which you can turn into a business, right?
We go by the term hire fast, fire fast. I'm sure you've heard of that. I want to know my value without having a title.
I'm here sharing inspiring stories about fearless entrepreneurial women to help encourage you to live your life unapologetically. I'm your host, Heather Blankenship. Welcome to the Unapologetically Me podcast.
On today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Beth Kolk, and we're talking about transitioning from rental arbitrage to a successful co-hosting business. Because one of the biggest skills as an entrepreneur is knowing when it's time to pivot before it's too late. And arbitrage used to be great quite a few years ago, and it's become harder and harder to make the numbers work and be a realistic business that's cash flowing. They've transitioned to a co-hosting business and now have almost 60 properties. So let's dig in. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
You are speaking tomorrow on co-hosting?
Yes, short-term rental co-hosting.
So I'm curious, you're working with your husband in that business, and as much as I would love to hear about co-hosting, I am way more interested to hear how the heck do y'all work together, and you're still married to the point to where you're about to have a baby.
It's very
true.
It's
clearly working. Talk to me about the dynamic there and how you divide roles and what happens when you don't agree.
Yeah, it's really helpful that him and I are quite opposite whenever it comes to our role in the business. He is very sales focused, marketing focused. I am much more on the back end, operations, systems, making sure things are running smoothly. So I am kind of the detail oriented one while he is bigger picture. And so that's a good balance for us, and it started that way in the beginning. It's definitely one of those things I've said to him before, I don't know if we would be the best coworkers in a normal place. Sometimes I get frustrated with him just not being the detailed person that I need him to be sometimes. And then him the opposite with me. I'm much more cautious. He's the risk taker. So he's, trying to bring me along on this risk the next venture he wants to take. And have you thought of this, that could go wrong?
I'm more the visionary person, and sometimes I need someone to be like, yeah, Heather, but how are we going to pull off this and this part? And I'm like, but it's a great idea. And you're like, let's wait a second. Let's talk the whole thing through.
Let's think this through a little bit.
So it's very different than both of your previous lives because you were a teacher.
Yes.
He was a police officer. How do you go from totally normal jobs to we're going to be business owners?
Honestly, in the beginning, it was a huge shift for me. I operated on a bell schedule. And to go from a bell schedule where I eat lunch at a bell, I went to nobody telling me what to do in a day, nobody making my schedule for me or telling me what room I need to be in, teaching what class. And that was a really hard transition for me. I felt like I lost a little bit of my purpose. And then alongside that, I used to have kids telling me every day, oh my gosh, you're the best teacher, I love you, and that kind of thing.
And now they're beating you up. People are mad and,
adults or just, being solo and working from my couch. It's just such a different environment. And so being really
we should talk about that. A lot of people dream of that. They think it's I don't have a boss, I have all this freedom and flexibility, but it truly is a different type of life.
Very.
And you have to be really self-motivated. And I think most people describe themselves as that, but when no one's ringing that bell.
When you actually come to face it, it's very different. And being able to put yourself in a position where you don't necessarily need those external factors. You don't need the bell. You don't need the validation from little kids anymore and that kind of thing. You are self-motivated. You are driving that passion internally.
Listen, y'all, I know today's episode is inspiring, but inspiration alone will never carry us to our ultimate goals. That's why I started the Society of Entrepreneurial Women. It's a mastermind for high-performing female investors and entrepreneurs who are living their lives unapologetically. In a world where most people don't get us, or they try to keep us confined in a small box, the Society exists to turn off the brakes and set you free. We have weekly calls covering investing, wealth building, health, relationships, family, and a whole lot more. We have small tribes to hold each other accountable to our goals. We have in-person, ladies-only retreats to disconnect and drive each other towards our dreams. And most importantly, this is a community where you can be unapologetically you. Celebrate your wins, scream your successes from the top of the rooftop, become best friends with women who get you. We're 3 years in, and I can honestly say my best friends today are all from the society. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
So it's been 4 years?
Yes.
So how did you make that transition? Because it's one thing to acknowledge it's hard,
Yeah.
and another to like get yourself up and like turn something into what a successful business is.
Right. So we initially started where I had transitioned from teaching into real estate. I got my license, and I was on the buying and selling side for about a year. During that time, because I had more time and my husband jumped into rental arbitrage, he was working 12-hour shifts, but he would have half of the month off with those shift changes. And so he was working in his free time. I would help on the side as well. So we kind of started there, and then it became something where I enjoyed doing that more than the buying and selling side of real estate. And so we decided for me to go full time, and eventually he followed suit as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you start out with arbitrage, which do you think it's still as possible today to do arbitrage as it was 4 years ago?
Yeah, 4 years ago was the time, but there are still great deals out there. You just have to be very intentional on what you're looking for, the rent rate you're paying, and the market that you're in. I would say it's not as good of an option to go with these days. We definitely, after shifting to co-hosting, we see that being much more scalable, much more reasonable in the market.
So let's talk about why. Because as what we're talking about is an active job
Yes.
in the sphere of real estate. It's not being an investor.
Right.
When we're talking about being an agent, and this is
Right.
going to make some people mad, but it is not being an investor. And it's not an opinion. You don't have the same tax benefits.
Right.
You don't have the same,
Correct.
any of the same benefits,
Yes.
right? But you are learning some really great skills
Yes.
inside the industry of real estate investing. So things like being an agent, doing rental arbitrage, co-hosting, these are active jobs, which you can turn into a business, right?
Yes.
Inside the real estate investing world.
Yes.
So it is kind of an apples to apples comparison, because we're still talking about a job in the real estate world.
Yes.
That can give you some cash flow if you want to become a real estate investor to then purchase a property.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of a mindset shift to you're not going to be the one setting up this rental anymore that you've rented out to, okay, let's help people who've already done that. So how did you transition from we're doing some arbitrage to building this co-hosting business? Because y'all are doing, is it 50 units now?
We're closer to 60.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So whenever we started with arbitrage, just learning the ins and outs of short-term rental and Airbnb in general, we just grew so much knowledge in that first year. We scaled to our first 30-ish units. Once we had that knowledge, we were able to give advice to others. So we started a meetup in our local community. We started helping other people get into it as well. And so with that, transitioning it to giving advice to people who didn't want to rent their property out, but they wanted to manage their short-term rental, giving that value to them and saying, these are the things we see in your listing that you could better optimize, because we were doing it ourselves. And then being able to allow them to say, you know, I see what you're doing here, and I think you could do a better job at it than I can. Would you mind managing mine? And it just kind of naturally progressed that way. So building that, the education side of it is really important when we get started. And we let others know that too. Get educated on what you need to know when you're operating a short-term rental, and you're way more valuable as a co-host in that way as well.
So talk me through the difference in hiring a management company and having a co-host, because I think some of those terms get interchanged.
They do.
And they definitely
They
don't
do.
seem like the same thing.
Yeah, so one of the biggest differences for us is that we are not handling the owner's money for them. So in Airbnb, they make it really simple. They have a payout split feature, so we can attach ourselves as a co-host on the listing that the owner owns. They keep all of their reviews, they own the listing, and we're just attached to it. We receive our commission payout and the cleaning fee payout, and they receive the remainder. So one of the largest pieces is trust accounting and property management, needing to be licensed and needing to follow certain rules to be able to do that. Co-hosting is much different. We're not handling their money for them.
So does it eliminate the need for a management company, or do they still need a management company?
It eliminates that need. So we are full service. And you can offer full service, you can do partial service, but we handle the messaging, the maintenance, the cleaning. We do top to bottom. We want very minimal involvement from our clients, but that's just our specific desire. So yeah, it's pretty hands-off for them.
So how did building a team go? Because I know you're getting ready to transition. You're having a baby, and you're how many weeks?
Yes, 33.
So you're hoping to kind of transition
Yes.
and not be quite as involved. How did you do that?
Trial and error.
Okay, talk
Yeah.
me through. Who's your first hire? What does training look like? Talk me through how you're prepping for this.
Yeah.
Because as the person who's the taskmaster,
Right.
what does that look like for you?
When we first started to hire, we went the virtual assistant route. We were around 5 to 10 properties and realizing how much of our day-to-day it was taking up just to message guests and
Yeah.
message the cleaners. So we started with virtual assistants. We go by the term hire fast, fire fast. I'm sure you've heard of that. And we definitely had to follow through with that. If they weren't able to kind of keep up with us or follow through on what we needed and the training we provided, then we would move on quickly. And so it's taken some time, but we are at a team of 3 virtual assistants at the moment, and they rotate shifts 24/7. And then we have 2 operations managers, the most recent operations manager being my replacement. So we're working on building them up to be able to level up as operations managers to possible COO, CEO position.
So I'm curious how you're feeling, because for some women, it sounds like a huge dream and blessing to go from I'm getting ready to have my first baby and I plan on staying home with them and that's going to be my life. Mm-hmm. And others are like, I'm going to have my baby and I can't wait to get back to business. I'm going to have my cake and eat it too. How are you feeling with all that?
Bittersweet. I definitely think that I will struggle a little bit to leave and be out of the business for a certain amount of time. My husband is saying it is forever, but we'll see. I think even with our goal with the business, as you mentioned, it's not that we are necessarily investing, right? There is a difference in what we're doing. It is a very easy way to get into real estate with no money down, to start a co-hosting business. And that was the goal for us. It is a stepping stone to the next opportunity in real estate and the next opportunity in financial freedom. Coming from our background as a police officer and a teacher, we didn't have anything past, our standard salary that was not moving much each year, and so it was always going to have to be a side hustle or something extra to give us what we really want in life.
Yeah.
And so talking about what is our actual goal, what comes next, and timing wise, it's a possible sale, build to sell, and then naturally could turn into boutique hotel investments, things like that. So it's definitely one of those where we feel like we've built to a point where we can start looking to, okay, what is the next thing? Where are we going here with the family growing, with me in a different position and maybe less available? What does that look like moving forward?
Ladies, it's time to redefine the conference experience with the Society of Entrepreneurial Women Retreats. Step inside a world tailored for women just like you, where you can lead, learn, and unwind in style. Our retreats offer everything from insightful investing sessions to fun activities like salsa dancing, boat cruises, food tours, and so much more, ensuring you come back not just inspired, but truly refreshed. Join a community that celebrates you wholly and supports your every endeavor. Ready for a retreat that changes the game? Visit the link in our show notes and find out how you can be part of this exclusive experience.
So do you live near your family?
We do, yeah.
How's that? Do you have family that's going to help with the baby? Anybody involved in your business?
Yeah, so my husband Luke's family is in town, which is so helpful, and then mine is about 3 hours away.
Okay,
So,
3 hours is still they can
yeah,
drive over if
yes,
they need to.
Yeah, so they will be ready to go. They are ready to go, actually.
Are you the first one having a baby?
I'm not on my side, and not on Luke's side either. But
So they're used to the grandkids
they are,
and
yes.
all of the stuff.
Yeah.
How sweet to have cousins close too.
I know, yeah, we're really excited about that.
I love that. So what's something that, because with the business and the baby coming, is there any other things in your life that you've been working on you're excited about? Or do you feel like you've been so consumed with transitioning that you haven't had time for yourself for that?
Yeah, I think the transition has consumed me quite a bit. And it's funny, even the other day was going through the question of like, you know, what really interests you? Like outside of business, outside of this entrepreneurial world that we've built. And my answer was always originally like, I'm most interested in being a mom. Like I love kids, I want my own kids, and I'm so excited for this time in life. But then you come against the question of my value transitioning. If the only thing I find value in is in a job, I don't want that to transition to, okay, now my new job is mom. I want to know my value without having a title, if that makes sense. I am enough without that. I am me, you know? So
yeah, it's being comfortable in your own skin even. So
yeah.
I'm curious, as a former teacher, do you think you'll homeschool or send your kids to school?
I'm leaning towards homeschool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. The flexibility it offers, and then the homeschool programs I think have come a long way as well. The socialization piece I think is what we're most concerned about, but I think that they've provided enough opportunity for that to be not as much of a worry anymore. So I think that's the direction we're leaning.
It's so funny. I think everybody's first question is socialization, and Carolina, who's in the room, her and I could not have more social kids.
Yeah.
They're homeschooled and they are the most social little kids you will ever meet.
Yeah.
And I think that stems from they aren't just in kid orchestrated situations. They are in both situations with children and with adults.
Yes.
So their social skills are a little more mature than the average child their age because they've been in both.
Yeah.
And whether that's a good or a bad thing, it's just a difference in how homeschool kids seem to socialize. But the dynamic with the kids at home, it's so sweet to see them as each other's best friends instead of, you know, hating on their siblings and like ignoring them and pretending they don't exist at school.
Yeah, that's so true.
Seeing the relationship they build is really, really sweet.
Yeah, I think we're really excited to be able to kind of bring them into our world and just see how they grow and develop, what their interests are, if they're interested in real estate or if they're interested in doing what mom and dad are doing. I think we're excited to expose them to that and kind of give them a choice, but also, you know, kind of lead them in a way that we've seen success.
How did you and your husband meet?
At a rave.
Okay, so from what we've learned about you so far, that is the last thing I would have thought you were going to say. Okay, talk me through that.
We love EDM music, so Vegas is the right place for us to be. But
And you're from North Carolina?
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of EDM music in North Carolina?
We don't.
Okay.
We don't. So on my commute to school every morning, I had a 40-minute drive, and I just became really good at winning things on the radio. And so around 2 times a week, I would call in and win something on the radio. At this time, it ended up being 2 tickets to an EDM concert that was going on. And Luke just happened to buy tickets with his friends as well. And so about halfway through the night, he's super tall, I can't miss him in a crowd. He ended up behind me, and we started dancing together, and then that was the end of the night. No name exchange, no phone number exchange, no nothing. Walked away, and then about 2 weeks later, we had both joined a new gym in town, and he recognized me from the night and came over and said, "Hey, were you at that rave that night?" And I was like, "Yeah." He had a video of me, and he said, "Was this you?" I said, Yeah, that's me. So we ended up never parting ways after that.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a great story. Okay, so you see each other at the gym.
Yes.
What happens next?
His question was disc golf or volleyball. So he was just such a well-connected person. He was always doing something left and right. He was in between police academy and starting the job, and I was on summer break. So I was incredibly available, and he was as well. And so we just spent so much time together. And then as he had that time off with police work, he started dabbling in different ways of making money. He started with couch flipping, and that earned him his first down payment to buy a home. At that time, conveniently, I had just gotten my license, so he was my first sale. So it kind of worked out really well. He ended up renting cars on Turo. So he bought his dream car and had no payment for it because he was renting it out throughout the month. And then from there, turned to rental arbitrage from an Instagram ad. So that's just kind of how it all spiraled.
So I think there's something to be said too about y'all's ability to pivot, because I don't think Turo is working as great as it
Right.
was. Arbitrage isn't working as
Yes.
great as it was. Couch flipping, right?
Right.
It seems to be that y'all pivot just at the right time.
Yes.
While things are, you get in while it's great and continue moving on to the next thing. It's almost like a constant hustle.
It's been a hustle. It definitely has. An exciting one, a challenging one, a rewarding one. We have not stopped the last 4 years for sure. And I think that's what we're so excited about with baby on the way is it might slow us down. It might change our priorities a little bit, but it definitely means stability in our minds and the next evolution of what we're doing. So
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing this with me
Thank
today.
you so much for having me. It was so nice to be here.
Yeah.
Remember, authenticity is your superpower. Stay unapologetically yourself, and let's continue embracing our uniqueness together. Make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss the next episode.